Nobody decided to invent farming. Not a single person woke up one morning, looked at the wild grass blowing in the wind, and thought, I should spend the rest of my life doing this. It didn't happen that way. In fact, the people who started farming almost certainly hated it. They were hungrier than their parents, they were shorter, their teeth were rotting, their backs were ruined by 40, and yet they kept going, and their children kept going, and their children's children kept going. Until one day, 10,000 years later, 8 billion people had no other option. So how does something that made early humans measurably worse off take over the entire planet? That is exactly what we're going to find out. To understand how farming started, you first have to understand how good life was before it. For about 300,000 years, humans were hunter-gatherers. They worked roughly 2 to 4 hours a day to survive. They ate over 200 different types of plants, seeds, roots, and animals. Their skeletons were strong. Their brains were sharp. They had time, enormous amounts of it. The Hadza of northern Tanzania, one of the last hunter-gatherer groups alive today, still live this way. Researchers who study them consistently come back with the same observation. These people look genuinely happy, not Instagram happy. Actually, quietly, profoundly content. Now keep that image in your head because everything is about to go wrong. About 12,000 years ago, in a region we now call the Fertile Crescent, modern-day Iraq, Syria, and Turkey, something strange started happening around human campsites. Wild wheat and barley began growing in thick, dense patches right where people had been dumping food scraps and waste. Nobody planted them. People were just eating wild grain, spitting out seeds, tossing husks, and moving on. But the ground near their camps was disturbed, fertile, and full of discarded seeds. The plants grew back. The people returned, ate again, left more seeds. Season after season, without anyone deciding anything, a feedback loop was forming. This is what scientists call unconscious cultivation. Farming didn't start as a plan, it started as a habit. Here's where it gets interesting. As camps returned to the same spots year after year, something began to shift in the plants themselves. Wild wheat has a natural mechanism. Its seeds fall off the stalk and scatter when they're ripe. That's how it spreads. But occasionally, a random genetic mutation would produce a plant whose seeds stayed attached to the stalk longer. In the wild, those plants were losers. Their seeds didn't scatter. They couldn't spread. But for humans harvesting grain by hand, those were the best plants. The ones worth coming back for. Without knowing it, early humans were selecting for the exact traits that would make a plant dependent on human hands to reproduce. The wheat was changing, and so were the people. They started building more permanent shelters near these patches. They started defending them from animals. They started storing grain. And somewhere in that process, without a single vote or decision, they stopped being nomads. This is the part nobody talks about. The early farmers were not thriving. Archaeological records show that when populations made the switch from hunting and gathering to farming, average height dropped by about 5 inches. Skeletal evidence shows a spike in malnutrition, anemia, and bone disease. Hunter-gatherers ate hundreds of species. Early farmers ate maybe 3 or 4 crops. If those crops failed, everyone starved together. Diseases that had never been a serious problem before, the kind that jumped from animals to humans, started spreading through dense settlements for the first time. Life expectancy fell. Infant mortality rose. By almost every physical measure, early farming was a step down. And yet, farming had one advantage that hunting and gathering could never match. It produced more calories per acre. More calories meant more children could survive. More children meant more people. More people meant you could defend your land, plant more fields, and outpopulate every group around you. The hunter-gatherers didn't lose because their way of life was worse. They lost because farming was better at making more farmers. Once it started in the Fertile Crescent, farming independently appeared in at least 6 or 7 other places around the world. China developed rice and millet farming around the same time. Mesoamerica independently developed corn. New Guinea developed taro. The Sahel developed sorghum. These were not connected events. Nobody copied anybody. The conditions were simply right. The climate had stabilized after the last ice age, wild grasses were abundant, and humans everywhere had been nudging plants for thousands of years without realizing it. The accident happened independently, repeatedly, on multiple continents, as if the planet itself had been slowly setting the table. Agriculture gave us civilization. It gave us cities, writing, mathematics, medicine, and eventually the device you're watching this on. But it also gave us something else. It gave us the concept of owning land and therefore the concept of people who don't own land. It gave us grain surpluses and therefore the people who control those surpluses. It gave us the very first bosses, the very first taxes, the very first wars fought not over insults or territory, but over food stores. For 300,000 years, humans lived in groups of about 25 to 30 people where almost everyone was equal. Within a few thousand years of farming, we had kings, we had slaves, we had armies, not because humans suddenly became greedy or cruel, but because for the first time there was something worth being greedy about. Here is the wildest part of all of this. The people who started farming didn't know they were changing the world. They weren't visionaries. They were just people, following food, following habit, following the slow pull of a pattern that made sense one season at a time. The most consequential revolution in human history, the one that led to every city, every empire, every technology, started because someone dropped some grain, walked away, and then came back. And we have never really stopped coming back since.